In this video, I'm going to highlight a step-by-step procedure that I think anyone can take, whether they be console, Switch, or PC, to get their first earnings. With the addition of victory cups, earning is possible with just a single win in the finals of a cash cup. I myself have earned 13 times, and with this experience, I've narrowed down an exact formula for players of any skill level to earn. I'm going to briefly walk through early and mid-game. The real value of this video will be my walkthrough endgame. I've concocted a network of strategies that you can use to win games and earn $100 without ever getting a single kill. The goal of early mid-game is simple. There's a loot checklist that you need to check off, as well as a certain amount of mats that you want to have. An ideal loadout for the current meta would be 6 medkits, 3 big pots, 1 grapple, and 1 shotgun. As far as mats go, you want to be refarming every zone that you box up in. That way you can start the endgame with 1500 mats. The first thing in early game is your drop spot. The most important thing this season is that you have a drop spot with efficient mat farming and nearby vending machines. The easiest way to acquire 6 medkits and 3 bigs is by using EMP grenades on vending machines to get tons of gold to buy bigs and meds. Note that you only need 2 bigs and 5 medkits, since your cash will give you 1 of each. For those of you watching that are decent fighters, oftentimes you can get an extra cash by fighting someone off theirs, or if yours gets claimed, you can fight them off of yours pretty easily. People tend to be really scared if you project confidence, so you can walk up to a cash box, start smacking some walls, and if they seem decent, you can obviously disgage, but more often than not, they'll leave and let you have the cash. Now, finally moving into the endgame, there are 3 underutilized principles that make winning games without refreshes possible. The first principle is sitting in cones. Now, this might sound absolutely insane, but it's something I've done multiple times to earn in the cash cups, and that's because sitting in a cone rather than boxing up saves you 50 to 60 mats per box. People on average box up anywhere from 15 to 25 times if they make it to the final zone, which means that they could save close to 1,000 mats. There are a few main criteria to consider when deciding whether or not to box or cone. The first is the attention of a lobby. You have to make sure that nobody is watching you when you place yourself in the cone, because if they do, it makes you extremely vulnerable to getting sprayed or boxed. The next thing to note is that it should only be done in the transitional zone periods, or if you get all the way to the center of the circle. If you sit in a cone on the edge of the zone, you're prone to getting caught in other people's builds and suffocated without anywhere to go, since you don't have any of the edit control. The other benefit to sitting in cones is that often you can find yourself in a good position to scavenge loot or get a kill on someone completely unaware. The second principle is maximizing distance per rotation. This is best explained via example. In Zone 8, the first fully moving zone, I'll give 2 options. A, go early, box up, and then once it starts pulling, go the rest of the distance to get inside the circle. Or B, wait till zone starts moving to go, and then in 1 rotation you can get fully inside the circle. While option A might sound smarter because you make your rotates easier with what feels like less of a chance of getting shot or held, it's actually the worst of the 2 options. Rotating once not only allows you to save the mats from the intermediate box, but it also makes it so you only have to do 1 perfect rotation rather than 2 perfect rotations. Even though the 1 rotation is longer and of a higher difficulty of both the singular rotations from option A, your checklist before moving should still be the same. First, nobody is currently looking to hold me, and secondly, nobody around me is going to jump on me when I go. If you consistently make optimal rotations where you maximize the distance traveled per rotation, you can reduce the amount of boxes you have to make per game even further. The third and final in-game principle is using old builds. Using old builds is the final mat conservation principle. Old builds provide cover and tunnels to rotate without having to use any of your own materials. You can either find an old box to wait in while you wait for the zone to progress, or you can wait inside an old box while you wait for the new zone to appear. Sometimes you can even find a dense layer of them where you can continually chop through the builds to stay ahead. If you know a box is unoccupied, you can also place a ramp and a wall or 2 and then wait on the old builds to save some mats. One thing to be wary of are zone pullbacks. When zones pull back, it makes the likelihood of someone owning the old builds you're using from close to none to highly likely. Since people know where their old boxes were in the zone pullbacks, they often search for them to save on materials. Also, like sitting in cones, you don't want to do this on the edge of zone when a new zone is about to appear, because you'll get caught in back zone if it pulls far and you don't have edit control. If you use all of these strategies, you should still have around 500 to 600 mats for the final zone. Once final zone is around 20 to 30 seconds until fully closing, you can start full tarping to avoid any further risk. Make sure you're on a layer that no one is going to jump in on you, as well as making sure that you stay in zone for as long as possible before you begin to pop your medkits. If you don't take any damage before the last zone closes and you still have your 6 medkits, you can almost 100% guarantee the win. Alright, for this final portion of the video, I'm going to be looking through my perfect game where I didn't end up getting any refreshes at all and I won the game. One thing I want to mention really quick is a lot of the solo knowledge I gained is actually from Destiny Jesus' masterclass. It has a bunch of valuable info from a bunch of different pros, and I highly recommend you guys checking it out using the link in the description below. Alright, now for this first moving rotate, or actually this is my second moving rotate, I want to mention that I wait until zone is already going and that zone is on my back to make this rotate. I know I can't make it all the way in just based off this one rotate, so instead I opt to sit in a cone and wait for the rest of the zone to reveal. And now, as you can hear, when zone opens up, I decide to get in and make a full box. Unfortunately, someone sees me and sprays at me, and that's the only moment in this game where I actually take any damage. Generally, you could pop 2 bigs here, but since I happen to have a medallion, I wait for zone to pull, and since it pulls far, I don't actually have time to pop a big, so I get ahead once, and then once I'm ahead, then I have time to pop my big. Now that I have my big off, I can once again get ahead, and again, I see that no one's really looking at me, so I can hop straight into a cone. Now that zone's at my back, the new circle is actually revealed, so I'm able to run all the way and get in without using almost any builds again. I end up jumping on someone's top cone, and since I stand in the very middle of it, I know that they can't edit me down. I see zone pull far, so I hop on my top cone and start to scout the rotate. I'm looking up at height because since I'm on a high layer, the only people that are really going to be able to shoot me is height himself. I hop in a cone again and look straight up at height to make sure he wasn't watching, and now I can just chill again. Now that zone's on my back again, I can get all the way in, and I can make a full box instead of a cone this time, just because the way the grid is, I can only be in if I'm in the corner of that box. I hold the edit on this wall just in case zone pulls far, and in this case it did, so I'm able to run front immediately. At this point in the game, I still have almost 1,000 mats. Now I can keep getting ahead over and over again until it's around 30 to 20 seconds left in the final zone. Then I'll start full tarping. I'm making sure to keep awareness of my terrain, and since I know that there's a little mountain ahead of me, I elevate a couple layers there just so I don't get suffocated below the mountain. Now that there's 30 seconds left, I begin to full tarp, and I also spot some old builds that I can chop through just to make sure I don't go through the rest of my mats. I have 6 medkits, and I know I haven't taken any zone, so as long as I don't let anyone jump in on me, and I don't take any zone ticks early, I know that there's a 99% chance I win this game. So now, I've made it all the way to zone close, with my 6 medkits still. I end up going through 5 medkits, but in the end, I do get my win. This is an example of an extremely clean game, where I didn't need any refreshes in endgame. In fact, the only kills were actually from kills that I got off spawn. Now here I have an example of a game that wasn't clean at all. This game starts off bad because not only do I not have enough medkits to play heal off, I also have only 1 big. I'm scuffed this game because I wasn't able to find a grapple early, so when I was making my first moving rotate, I got jumped on, and yes, I got the kill and got the grapple, but it put me in a much worse spot for this endgame and made everything a lot harder. Here you can see I'm just rotating on foot. I get fried here, and since I have a medallion, instead of immediately popping my big, I wait to get to 50 HP just so I don't waste any of the HP. I pop a medkit here because I know that I'm already going to need a medkit refresh, so it doesn't really matter. I get ready to edit in case it pulls far, but since it pulls back, I just pop my big. Now I'm actively looking for a refresh because I didn't play my mats well enough this game to be able to make it to the final zone. So I'm going to need at least 1 refresh to get 3 medkits and enough mats to finish out the game. I make a half box here on some old builds to conserve some mats while I look for a refresh. Sitting under a ramp is a good way to look for a refresh because you can see through the edit. I sit in a cone here just because I know it's a good way to get a refresh in case someone just happens to box up on top of my cone. I have the mythic auto to get the refresh. Unfortunately for me, no one ends up doing it, so when the next zone pulls, I immediately get ahead to start looking again for another refresh. I end up dropping some layers here because I get cut off, and generally lower layers tend to lead to easier refreshes. I get hit 100, and so I know I need to wait for my medallion to heal me up. At this point I realize I'm only siphon mats and I see someone boxed up in wood, and since I have the mythic drum, I'm not afraid at all to just jump straight in. That refresh puts me at about 2 times siphon, so I get ahead knowing I'm going to need another refresh. I see the final zone pulls up a hill and far, so I stay elevated and sit in cones to conserve the little mats I have. I pop the big that I got from the body to get back up to 200 HP. And now here I have 8 builds again, so I know I'm going to have to go for another refresh. I try getting in on this guy, and it works, but unfortunately I mess up my timing exploit so I don't get the kill on him. Now I only have 7 builds. I happened to run through this box and find 3 medkits, which is extremely lucky. This guy starts pickaxing on my front, and so since I have no mats, I bait by running out, but then I go back into storm where he was to get behind him and get the kill. I pickaxe through, and I realize I have a ton of mats, so all I need to do is tarp, but I end up getting down to 1 tick and start popping a medkit early to get some of that white HP back. I take another tick, so I'm down to 12 HP, and begin my final medkit pops. I stay in zone as long as possible, and then sit back and pray that I've won the game. Thankfully, in this game, even though I took a bunch of ticks early, and I didn't have the full 6 medkits, no one else in my lobby had any more than me, so I end up winning the game just by a slim margin. If I had played this game way cleaner from the very start, it would have been a much easier win. This shows that the way most people get wins is possible, but it is a lot more RNG based. As simply one person on height with 6 medkits would have made me lose that game. Thank you all for watching. If you want to see more videos like these, make sure to leave a comment and letting me know. Also, if you want a whole catalog of videos designed to help you improve, check out Destiny Jesus Masterclass with the link I left in the description. Other than that, no long outros, bye.